Welcome to the next episode of Take a Break.
Take a break. Keep the whole world guessing. Take a break from the human race. Take a break when it gets depressing. Take a break.
Pat Armitstead is a voice for all that is joyful. In this series, she brings a fresh approach to emerging consciousness. Through conversational, social and emotional intelligence, she and her guests explore new models of leadership that embrace humour, empathy and compassion.
Alrighty.
All right, this is so awesome. So here you are.
Yes.
And here I am at Armitstead, Danielle Lin, totally zooming it together. There's nothing better than a cool chick that will literally be spontaneous.
Yes.
Right?
I've been studying actually improv acting since the year 2000. Improv probably saved my life on many levels. And while I'm not an improv comedian, the rules of improv are first thought is correct. All players are equal. Nobody wins if someone tries to win, and you need to be ready to give and open to receive. And I just have so embraced that in all of my work, especially presenting. I do a number of different programs, and to be operating from that space is just extraordinary. And I haven't done it for a while, but I've done a bit of street theatre and been a moving statue. And it's the most intensely meditative space that I've experienced. And once you learn, you're there in an instant. And I've never been able to get that kind of access through, going and meditating. I can, get a great experience, but not to really get into my body. My life's been...
have a vibe. You definitely have a vibe. It's so interesting. And folks, if you're listening into us, we didn't know each other 5 minutes ago.
Yes.
And you are in Australia. It is about 12:30 or something your time.
Yeah.
It's 7:30 p.m. Salt Lake time.
Yeah.
Literally, we clicked in and I was like, hey, how about a Zoom? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, this is great. Yeah. So I was in Hollywood. I used to be a celebrity barber, and all the people that were like in Second City and all the people that came out up through Saturday Night Live either were clients of mine or I did some improv with them. And
yes.
It was unbelievable. And I'm so sad that I didn't, when I was in my Hollywood days, now I'm in Utah, but I didn't stay doing it because, as you said, something releases in it that gives you this freedom to not only just be funny, but to be something else.
Yeah. For me, it releases the censor. Once you've learnt the drills of all the preparation before you hit the stage, in those processes, you learn, well, for me, I learned about really getting into the nuance of being fully self-expressed across all the emotions, because you might know 12 variations of what does rage look like? And there are, miniatures of that. That's got its own little monitor. And I think the biggest thing, I really connected to it, and I went and did I did some improv training, then was signed up with an acting agency just to get some experience in front of the camera developing.
Right.
And the first gig that came along was a game show called The Chair, and they predetermined your stress rate for your heart, pumped you in a chair 25 feet in the air, your heart rate's being monitored, you can hear it, flames are shooting up all around you. You've got money.
Sounds so Australian.
You've got money in the left monitor trickling down as time ticks away. And then you've got to answer 7 questions in 7 minutes without exceeding your predetermined stress rate for your heart. No pressure.
That was a great show. No pressure at all. No pressure.
So
oh, that's great.
I was contestant number 7 that was sent to the chair. And, you know, I said to myself before I even came into the studio, whatever happens is okay, you know. If I end up just being back out in the corridor's fine. And I just went with first thought. And when we got to the last question, I faltered a bit and I thought, oh, it's A, oh, no, D. And he would have seen my hesitation. Anyway, I decided on D. And all the other times he'd said, Pat, you said C, and C is correct. And the audience applauded. This time he said, oh, Pat, if you'd have said A, you would have been wrong. But you said D, and D is correct. So I won $5,000 in 7 minutes, going with first thought.
Right. Yeah. So
because
picking up
I
on
just worked very intuitively.
Right.
And it just freed me for the rest of my life. Every day now, still, I get into my car a different way, just to be in the zone of getting the different view, getting the different perspective. And it's just a small thing. I might walk around the car and then get in, walk to the front and then come back and get in. Just some little thing that keeps me in that mindset of creating that space.
That's something that the reason I reached out to you was I thought there was going to be a master class, and then I didn't see it. And then it was awesome that we were able to go back and forth before my phone died. But I wanted to find out, you know, we thought we'd swap each other's shows and hang out with each other. But for here, I wanted to find out about your background. And the thing I also wanted to find out about, I really think that these days, the importance of something that you've done for 20 years, which is storytelling, has become essential rather than the pitch, you know, the sales way of going the way we used to do it, or even do leadership, in fact.
Yes.
What do you teach and how do you work in let's talk about storytelling and why it's so important now.
At the turn of the century, I had a series of losses, and they were of such significance that I disintegrated, but I made a couple of choices, and those choices led me fairly quickly to my reintegration. And I really got the significance of that, and it didn't come from any book or any reading in the external. There was just this certainty. You know, I had an insight, and it was, oh my God, we've got radiology, pathology, hematology, but no joyology. I'm going to be a joyologist. So I was the world's first. And then paradox and synchronicity began to happen for me side by side. And the same with challenge and support. There'd be a challenge, but then the phone would ring and it'd be like, oh my God. So this new vision appeared in front of me, and from that evolved the need for me to, number one, share my story. I really could own it, start to own my life up until that point. And then the significance of all of those losses and what happened for me and what came forth and the choices I made and where that led me. And then hindsight, of course, is wonderful. It shows you how we're being led. All of us, conscious or unconscious, we are being led to fulfill on, call it destiny. And so along that pathway, in 2004, I worked with 4 Jungian psychotherapists, and we all were we're all working with people to heal their wounds in one way or another. So support people through grief and loss. And so we cast each other with plaster of Paris bandage, not unlike that piece behind me. That's my cast face. And we shared monthly what was going on in our lives, where we thought that pain was stored in our body, and we made meaning and art of what we discovered. We shared between us all the myths, legends, fairy tales, stories, color, symbolism, crystals, all of those things that we knew came together in this huge explosion over the year of, you know, a wonderment in catching a story. So one of the things that came through for me at the close of that was I started doing a good grief program, and the grieving program was, you know, tapping into the story, going deep. I call it intimate communion, spiritual intimacy. Need that safe environment for that to occur. And then being able to, I have an intuitive sense when people share their story. I know in their body where they're storing that pain. And so that would be the body part chosen to make a cast of. And then we would typically mount whatever was cast and make art and meaning. So that was a 3-day process for that program with profound change. And I began to see, look, we're healing in 3 days. What in the past has taken people years.
If ever.
So, and one of my last, I live in Australia now, I am Australian, but I lived in New Zealand for 20 years. And one of my last clients over there, she came very quickly to a place of forgiveness and compassion around her partner who had been sexually abusing her boys. And it just astounded me and really gave me another sense of, look at what's happening here. We don't know, but we're being led. I didn't know we were going to come to that really significant outcome for her in such a short window. 6 weeks post her discovery, she still had some grieving to do, but she was at peace around not condemning him. He'd been arrested and subsequently went to jail. She was able to effect you know, a change and buy another house and get her children, her boys sorted. And, you know, her friends all along this path were saying, we're really worried about you. You're too good. And I got in that moment. It's like, yes, we expect people to suffer, you know, when things happen. And it doesn't have to be. Yes, we will be shocked and grieved, but suffering doesn't need to be an enduring process.
Right. Yeah.
We can bring it forth. And this casting process, when you take the plaster cast off, this has been my experience, it's shedding. And I actually had a practitioner from Utah talk to me one time online, and he said, oh, Pat, he said, what you do when you remove the cast is enough. He said, you don't need to make the art. He said, I appreciate, you know, you want to create that story, but because you've already done it. The body in its physical form has released. You've kind of got to, you don't just lift it off. They have to shed it. So they have to work.
Time in there where you decide. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine who just lost her husband, and they've been together for 40 years, 39 years. And because I had, similar to you, extraordinary loss in a very short period of time, where you melt. You that was then is different than right after all of that, especially if it comes quickly with more than one. And I said to her, I remember when I was driving in Santa Monica, and it was raining so hard and I was crying so hard. And I decided at that moment I had the right to grieve, that I got to choose how long I wanted to suffer. And I tried to explain that to her today. And she said, I don't understand. It's almost as if she thought that the suffering, and that she had to keep the suffering in order to keep him in her life. So it's a grief and profound and forgiveness. All the things that are happening now in our world that we're trying to mesh out, even between families, the politics of reality, all the things that are happening with the virus, there's so much for humanity to deal with at this moment. So words of wisdom from your perspective in a short form, when somebody says to you, Pat, look, it's great. I'm going to do all this work, right? Whatever. You know, you tell somebody, no, you can get to the point. So you do NLP, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your go-to that says, if you really want to shift, you can do this work, like the art and meaning. But I love like the combination of hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. So what's your go-to when somebody's coming up to you these days saying, it's so messed up, it's so out of kilter? Can we ever get back? And I don't know that we're going to go back ever to whatever was.
No.
What's the new reality for you as far as consciousness goes and the healing process?
You know I've been as guilty as anybody else about being attached to stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
This was that way. You know, my ex left, and after 20 years, and I thought we'd grow old and crotchety together in a rest home. That was my picture of and my certainty, you know, of how it would be. So that was broken.
Maybe you should be on a beach and laughing or something.
So, you know, we have these attachments to things that we've been told are true. And for me, at that time, he said to me on leaving, the last day we were together in the house, he said, no, I don't love you. And I never loved you. And in that moment, I thought, if that's true, then everything I've ever known is not true.
Interesting.
And I disintegrated. However, something guided me to make two choices, and that was to find a new mentor and to get present to my life.
Right.
I knew if I was going to move forward, I had that insight about joyology. I could no longer do it alone. I'd been Miss Independence for 40 years, and now I needed to create a shift.
Yeah. So what's this something? You know, look, if you're spiritually conscious, we know that describing the unknown is impossible to do. That's why it's unknown. But then there's this knowing that something is occurring. Like, I am here now because of what I went through. And even though maybe you can't say to somebody, with this death, and this death, you're going to actually end up better over here. Because at the time of the sequence, that's just not true for you.
Yeah.
But it appears that something that you're saying, something is guiding you. Like, you know how I got here. What is that for you, and how do you distinguish it? And in fact, with the law of intention, the law of creation, the law of whatever you want to say, synchronicity, coincidence, what do you tap into for yourself when you say, I want to go deeper into that, so I'm running in instead of unintended consequences, intentional consequences?
I think there are a range of things. We've got transgenerational trauma that's informing us, that we think is true, or sometimes not even conscious. Then we have all the conditioning that we've come through, and then the radical change that's occurred in, like, even just say my lifetime, right? It's unbelievable. The difference in patterning. I've actually been writing a book for my grandson, and that is eliciting a lot of that. It's like, oh my goodness. But for me, the other thing is, when all of this happened, a distinction that came to me was, in my culture, Australia and New Zealand, and it's probably the same for many around the world, we honour sport and we honour academia, but we don't honour intrapersonal intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, spiritual intelligence, practical, creative, nature. They've never got a look in. And so we are not fully self-expressed. We are very bound by the constraints of how we've been formed by a schooling system. And now we're approaching a point where so many people I've talked to in this 20 years might have the house and the beautiful wife and 2.5 children and, you know, a batch and matching cars, but there's a hollow.
There's a hole.
There's a hollow. And I
In
think,
Australia said to me once, I've accepted mediocrity.
yeah,
Like, I know I'm not going to be happy, so I'm going to be okay being, since I'm not totally unhappy. And I was astounded by that. And I want to just comment what you just said. I lived in New Zealand, in Auckland,
okay.
for 2 years, and
Yes,
around 2006. And there were such the reality of what you're saying. Like, first of all, we came in as an American group. And so the first thing was, oh, the Americans, the bloody Americans are going to come over and take over our country. And then because we were so joyous and exuberant, and if we were doing anything on stage, we were like, you know, our energy, like my hands were just flying. And they were like, oh, we're never going to do that. We're never like that. That's how you Americans are. And by the time we left, they had changed so much, and there was so much love that came into the environment because they let go of what was prim, proper,
yeah,
expected, accepted. And it was really joyous to experience. And the sports thing, I have never experienced an entire country becoming depressed when their sports team would lose, especially like if the All
exactly.
Blacks lost, you know. I mean, it was just astounding. And
Yep.
more women just as much in bars at the time, you know, when people were not, you know, worrying about social distancing. But so it's like you're saying, culturalizing. We think we're all one, and we all feel the same way, and we can come to the table with peace with the same verbiage, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
That's part of, so how do we move forward when you start integrating language, understanding of culture, using the kind of background you have to bring a room together?
You know, I was a registered nurse for 16 years and loved that. Then I went on, I got burnt out there, went on a working holiday around Australia for 5 years. I learned how to free fall in that
Wow.
because I was never with work. I just phoned ahead. So I learned, and I wasn't as conscious then as I am now, but I learned then how to free fall. I can be with, well, we don't know what's happening tomorrow. I just have a phone call. Well, what are they doing in that town? Let's go there. And then came back from that because my son reached high school age, and I thought we better come back to this other world. And by default started my own video production company, became a multi-award winning broadcast standards studio, freelancing for the news, 2020, 60 Minutes. So rapid escalation. So really experiencing then the flow. And I always wanted to be an artist, but my mother told me to get a proper job. And so I ended up going nursing. Nothing wrong with that, because I know now it fostered deep development of my capacity for empathy and compassion. I went on that trip and I learned how to free fall. I came back to this reality and was able to then step into this huge creative expression in that company. And then I lost it all. I lost my health. And it was like a total reassessment again, but there were things happened. I remember I did these 2 pilot projects, and one of the women who was part of that, her daughter used to draw me cartoons and call me Patch Armitstead. So 18 months after she started doing that, I toured Russia with Patch Adams.
Oh, no. Wow.
In the movie Patch Adams, when his girlfriend is shot, and this is true, he goes and stands over where he'll build Gesundheit, and he's got his battered old briefcase, and a monarch lands on that briefcase and flies up and lands on his chest. 18 months, or not, no, it'd be 3 months after my partner left, I woke up one morning and I'd lost the pigment out of my skin up to my elbows, and on my chest, a butterfly shape. And when I looked in the mirror that morning, it was like, oh my God, that's in the movie. That's in the movie. And so from that point through to the tour with Patch was about 2.5 years. And along that pathway, that lady started seeding something. So we have we're not alone. And I really get that on this energetic plane. I don't fully understand it, don't profess that, but the life events of Patch and mine were meant to be connected. And we were drawn together in a very holistic way. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, I was my body was telling me. And then once I got into the groove of this, after what my partner had said, I knew I only ever wanted my language to be a balm. I never wanted my language to wound anybody in the way his had wounded me. So part of that
That's
pathway.
a great point, though. That's a really important thing that you're saying is that every single word we speak has a vibration, has a frequency, and has an impact. And you choose or not. And when we spew, you know, this is one of the challenges with Twitter and being able to spew, because even though somebody may not be hearing you, they take the perception on of what they're feeling from you and then interpret it from their own filters. So you may say, you know, it's like doing text, you know, and you, the first time I started texting and somebody sent me this business guy sent me a LOL, and I was like, whoa, that's a little forward, because before that it was lots of love. Then it was laugh out loud.
Yes.
But just those letters right there was like, whoa, misinterpretation. And our words now are critically important because people are becoming more conscious. So when you dagger out a sentence, it's even more powerful when you know what's behind it, when you can use it.
Yeah.
So curbing. So how do you now, in the short time that we have together, but like the 1-2 punch, give us the 1-2. You know, I personally think that, like you're talking about, going inside is so critically important right now to come outside. COVID is bringing us inside.
Yeah. So the probably 5 or 6 years ago, I studied embraining. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but the multiple braining, we've got enough. We know we've got a head brain, but we also have a significant neural network in the heart and the gut for them both to be called a brain. And there's a methodology being created to enable people to get the head, the heart, and the gut aligned and working together. Mostly we're up here, right? And we're ruled by the head talk, which also contains the sensor and the hunya stuff. You know, who do you think you are? Where are you going with that? And, you know, increasingly I've seen we have so many people with gut disturbances this last 20 years, that in my observation. And, you know, this is where courage and intuition is formed. It's in the gut. And because of that gut disturbance, when I talk to so many people now and we get to go into the gut, it's dead, right? They've got no access to their intuitive self. They've got no sense in their gut. So there's nothing coming through, and it takes some work then to draw those threads and to track the history timeline to see where's the story that deadened.
Deadened the gut.
Yeah.
Well, and we're taking in so much information that the digestive tract, you know, we are, even as it's coming in, the digestive tract still has to, it's not just food that it's processing, it's energy that it's processing, and it's stuff that it's processing. Today I had to ship out all of the holiday stuff, and I was getting this done, and I'm buying a house, and it was insane. I was actually walking around in my studio and I was thinking, this is crazy. The enormity of things that we're taking in, on top of taking in the global perspective of what we're taking in. And so I love that part. I love the brain, the heart, the gut. And I remember when a friend of mine who ultimately did pass had become bipolar, and he was spending $50,000 a week at a clinic. And he would come out of there and he was like, he would say, these people know nothing. And when I'm in there, they poison me in my digestive system. And so they didn't even know how to feed properly, besides the mental nourishment and the spiritual nourishment. Then they were on top of it, not knowing how to combine the food. So there's this outer and inner balance going on all the time. And so I won't keep you much longer, because I know that we were going to just pick it. This is so fun. So fun. I love, can you imagine that if life was always this spontaneous? What's your favorite thing in life? Like, what's your greatest passion now? I know that working with people, but outside of that, like, what's your juju?
I have two peak moments. If I'm presenting live in a conference, for example, and I see the lights go on in the audience, someone's lights go on, it's like, that's my moment.
Wow. The most frightening moment for the rest of the people in the world. Like, it's a scary time.
And my keynotes are a performance. I am a creative performance. So I have dared to bring choreographed improv routines to open and close, for example. So bringing those things that amuse and bemuse the audience a little, I love doing that, and to have it make sense at the end. And then when I'm creating my art, I don't need anybody. There's just myself and the canvas or whatever I'm making. And, I tell my clients, we need to find our two peak moments. And during COVID, I didn't get enough of either in the way that I knew it 12 months ago. But eventually I created enough of both to be really aware of, I'm doing what I can with these circumstances.
Yeah. And Zoom is just doing, what used to be everything prim and proper and produced is now crazy off the cuff, fractionated pictures of people splitting, and you can, and you still can be okay.
Yes.
You can chill, and in the moment. So let's do some more of this.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to find me, Danielle Lin, you can find me at daniellelin.com. I have the largest podcast library in the world on improving the quality of life. So my last name is spelled L-I-N. You got to make sure you get that right, Danielle Lin. And if they want to find you and they want to do some work with you, where do they find you?
joyology.co.nz. And I look forward to, I looked at your, what you've created there with your podcasts, and it's like, oh my, just extraordinary. How wonderful.
It's been really fun, 37 years. Yeah. And now we're taking out 17 that hasn't been heard in 20 years. And that's amazing. Like the beginning of when somebody's going, whole wheat, really? They make a whole wheat bread? I mean, it's like, that's how crazy in the beginning, where now you look back and you think, really? Were we really that out of it? Well, I love you. I can't wait to spend more time with you and save this, and let's blast it out and do some work together.
Absolutely. To be continued.
Okay. All right. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye.
Awesome. Bye.
See you.
Take a break.
Thanks for taking a break with Pat Armitstead.
Take a break.
Join us next time for more.
Take a break.
And be sure to like, share and subscribe for updates. And don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Bye for now.